Welcome back to the Triggered Newscast. Today's April 1st, 2019. Tonight I want to talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I know a lot of you have already seen the photograph that was posted yesterday as proof to Ruth Bader Ginsburg being alive. Well, turns out quickly Twitter proved that to be false. The photograph was actually a complete Photoshop, complete takeover from the previous photo, and was snapped right into the photograph. So you guys can see in all of the other photographs, I posted two videos today. One of them shows the photographic evidence that Profane News actually dropped to me late last night on Twitter. And if you guys haven't followed my Twitter, that is a good place to throw me leads. But Profane News threw me a picture that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was spotted yesterday. And it turns out that every single other photograph that day, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's not around. And the only photograph that she is in fact in is proven to be false. So I posted one video earlier today showing the complete Photoshop over. It shows the two pictures melt into each other. It's the exact same outfit, the exact same scarf. Some of the people are calling the Austin Powers RBG picture. And unlike the TMZ photographs, it isn't extremely pixelated, but just like all of the photographs and all of the other videos that have been presented, it is prior footage. So hopefully you guys get a chance to check out that video. If you haven't already, you should. And another huge thing that I did make was a video timeline, which I released yesterday right before this photograph came out. So it goes through, it shows all of the video evidence, all of the audio, all of the image evidence. Good, Captain. I'm glad you guys are triggered. Woo! So I'm just going to throw this out there real quick before I keep going. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, this time, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to do a live cast. If you go to the www.triggerednewscast.com, I have a Google Calendar that's going to be updated with all of the topics that I'm going to be covering. Some of the nights I might have it open. Thanks for coming on in, Willie Waterbug. And then I'm also going to have the forums right there so that you guys can drop me tips, so that you guys can ask me what's going to be coming up. And you guys can sync your Google Calendars. So if YouTube hasn't been giving you the notifications, I'm going to keep consistent live times, at least those 4 times a week. I'm probably going to do more than that. And you guys obviously see that I keep dropping content. I enjoy doing it. Some of it's satire, some of it's news. I'm trying to branch away from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but unfortunately with the picture that was dropped yesterday, I just had to cover it. So thanks again to Profane News. If you guys haven't checked out their channel, it's actually a collaboration of several individuals. And last night they sent me a direct message on Twitter and let me know about this new Ruth Bader Ginsburg photograph. And on that very same thread, it was proven to be false within an hour. So the picture was hardly even out there before people were already saying this is fake. Now, there's also a very interesting element to the RBG faked photograph video that I added earlier, and that is the complete audio comparison. So this guy took, and I had posted links to his website, but he did a very thorough analysis of the audio. I've compiled all the audio, broke down just what Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, but this guy is an audio expert. He was able to separate the clips, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg speaking and the other exchange happening with Kavanaugh and the attorney that was presenting that day. And when you separate them, the background sound of the two conversations is like it's in two completely different courtrooms. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, check it out after this live cast. I'll leave a link down in the description and I'll add a card at the end. But the timeline video, if you guys haven't seen that yet, YouTube has really been trying not to get that one out there. It's already demonetized it. That's okay with me. You guys already know who have been checking in. I'm not necessarily trying to pack everything full of ads. I have a job. I'm a college student. I have 7 more weeks till I'll finish my degree. And I'm not necessarily looking to create money out of all these videos. I'm just trying to give the evidence that I find to you guys. And I partially started all of this because the evidence wasn't there in the first place. So on the timeline video, I'm going to go ahead and drop right now into the chat the link to the Twitter so that you guys can start sharing from that Twitter post. So maybe we can fight through that Twitter algorithm. Hopefully we can get this timeline shared a little bit. And when you guys do want to share the videos, it's great to share it from inside the YouTube platform because that tells YouTube that you guys are engaging. If you guys like the video, it's telling YouTube that you're engaging. But when we go on to Twitter, we really need centralized posts. Everyone posting the link separately doesn't push it on Twitter. So if you guys can or want to, go ahead and check out the link. I just threw it down into the chat, and it's a direct link to the tweet that posts the timeline video. And obviously, there's a lot of other issues with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Whether she's alive or dead, I think a lot of people right now, just as they get polarized on every single other issue, believe that she is, in fact, either dead or alive. I'm still on the fence, and that's the only reason I'm even still digging through evidence on the topic and trying to present it to you guys. I want to know that she's dead or alive, and I'll move on to other topics. I really wanted to get into geopolitics. I'm influenced heavily by H.A. Goodman, by the X22 report, by the Patriot Hour. I do like the Q stuff, but I don't really follow it. And that's what Profane News does, which is why they're really helpful to me, because I don't go on the Q maps at school and at the 2 professional jobs I work. My internet is heavily watched. I'm using company phones. I can't really just go on whatever I want. And the Q stuff is still a little bit too deep into the conspiracy for me to get on that myself at work. Their videos, their collaboration, a lot of them will go straight over and just show you what the posts are. And sometimes they explain it to people like me and my wife who are novices. I'm really not that good at all the Q language, the brackets. And honestly, I don't know how much I truly buy into Q personally, but I'm trying to present the news and evidence. So in the timeline, some of the Q drops are brought up, and some of my other videos, some of the Q drops are brought up. But this goes in line with what Trump has been doing with freedom of speech on college campuses, and we need to push it out to the rest of America. We need conservatives to be able to have our voice if we're at work or in public or with our friends and family at dinner occasions. We need to stop being discriminated against. I mean, if you were in a restaurant and you were kicked out because you were wearing a burqa, or because you had a yarmulke on the back of your head, or if you were kicked out purely because of a Hillary Clinton sticker, or a Cory Booker, or a Beto O'Rourke sticker, do you think that that would fly, or do you think that all over the news they'd be saying people politically persecuted? In America, we're supposed to have freedom of speech already. It's sad that Donald Trump had to legislate with executive order that we should have it. But I think as a journalist, which I'm trying to become, as I said, H.A. Goodman, some of these other people that influence me, I intend to get into articles and blogs as well. As a proficient academic researcher, I'm very good at digging through sources, verifying them. I know some of you guys have concerns that I don't bring up all of the evidence in the Ruth Bader Ginsburg conspiracy, but that's because not all of it I can verify. So I'm trying to bring you guys the most concise evidence that no one else is bringing to the table, and I'm going to keep doing that. So if you guys can, please check out the timeline video. If you feel like sharing it, please do. But I think that for now, since I have nothing else to bring on the Ruth Bader Ginsburg besides Donald Trump announcing that he already has a backup in mind, and that's Amy Barrett. And she's a Supreme Court justice. Sorry, not a Supreme Court justice, but a Supreme Court judge in the Ninth Circuit, I believe it is. And when Kavanaugh was being sworn in, there was a lot of controversy on why he didn't pick Amy Barrett. And it's obvious. He said it to many sources. I'll post the link in the description afterwards. But she's obviously going to be the next person who comes in. Hey, man, Pertnier, thank you. That's obviously the first $10 I've gotten. For those of you who don't know, if this is your first time in, I've done like 6 or 7 of these live casts. My account's 33 days old. You guys have really been sticking with me while I'm growing, learning, improving. So hopefully we're going to hear more from Donald Trump on Amy Barrett. But I think that another thing that we all need to demand as conservatives, I mean, we have the Democrats right now. They're coming out left and right and saying, hey, we need to lower the voting age. We need to abandon the Electoral College. Well, what should us Republicans or conservatives, what should we be demanding? What's an equal playing? What's really progressive? What's actually going to drain the swamp? So I think what we should be actually suggesting in the Republican side, hopefully this is something that other people will think about, discuss, encourage the debate. But I think what we should be proposing is term limits. I think that we can't drain the swamp if we're continually just taking a cup at a time, one McCabe, one Stroke, one Comey at a time, one indictment, one investigation. What we need to do is we need to have a foolproof system in Washington already, as designed by the Constitution, to get people out. And we have term limits for president for the very same reason. These people who get into these senatorships, after all of the money has been considered free speech, the lobbying power, it's not good to have these people in for a completely long time. So I think what we should be demanding as conservatives for this election, hopefully that's something we can get into. Maybe I'll make a content piece kind of suggesting it. But if we could offer term limits, we'd actually add a drain to the swamp. There'd be a funnel out. Before these people could even dig into their corruption, they'd be kicked out. Some of you who have been following me from the beginning know that I'm a Freemason. And in Masonry, we have people who are highly intelligent, who know their position extremely well, as I'm sure Justice Ginsburg does or did when she was at least mentally alert and acute. However, I don't agree with her policies. But these people in Masonry, as soon as they hit 80 years old, no matter how sharp as the whistle they are, even with all the copious experience they have, they can no longer serve in the office or higher positions. And we need to have term limits like that in Congress. We need to have term limits like that in the Supreme Court. We need to have term limits like that in the alphabet agencies. We need congressional oversight of alphabet agencies. So why don't us conservatives offer up some real progressive ideas, and maybe we can just show some more hypocrisy on the Democratic, the left-wing, liberal charged side and say, hey, you guys keep saying you're progressive, but you haven't offered anything different. The only time you flip on a position is when it's politically savvy for you, like the border wall. I posted a video about that. For the last 3 decades. Every Democrat has offered not only their own proposal, but the exact same proposal as Donald Trump. Obama asked for $2 billion more than Donald Trump did. Hillary Clinton said repeatedly, not only has she said highly racist comments, blacks are super predators, not only is she highly disrespectful to all groups of people, she doesn't apologize, she snaps on live TV, she tells reporters to retract things, she gets fed reporter questions, she turns down interviews if they won't feed her the questions. I mean, you guys who have been following me a little bit know some of the stuff I'm going into, but here soon, after college is out, I'm going to be in a whole different direction. I'm going to be doing much more scholarly. I know that journalism has one level of what they consider good, Pulitzer Prize. Well, we have things in science called Nobel Prizes. It needs to be significant. It needs to be thorough. It needs to be peer reviewed. It needs to be critiqued. Journalism today is just right off the cuff. They get a 1 megapixel picture of any woman standing behind a car, and it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They can put anybody who looks like anybody in the exact same clothes, put them in the exact same airport, take a video, ask similarly stupid questions, and people could say that, hey, that's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't buy it. I think a lot of you don't buy it. Some of you who are going to log on after this live cast are not going to buy it, or you're going to think that she's alive. Well, I'm not trying to convince you she's dead. I'm not trying to convince you she's alive. I'm just trying to provide the evidence. So I really hope that you guys truly appreciate that, and I hope you keep checking in. Please, I'll throw it down here in chat one more time. If you guys would, please share that Ruth Bader Ginsburg timeline tweet that I did. Let's help that trend on Twitter. The fake RBG photograph video I did today is already kind of taken off, but anything you guys could do to help it go would be awesome. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and just focus in on the chat. If you guys want to ask any questions before I get off, I'm thinking Wednesday what I'm going to focus on was today's public summit. I made a quick 2-minute video about it earlier today, but I really want to go into what Cory Booker, Spartacus was saying. Again, I think it's Willy Wonka land. I think they're standing out in the parking lot and they're all giving their golden ticket to Hillary Clinton. They all are self-sabotaging before they've even got into the factory. Hillary Clinton, just like 2016, with whatever election fraud, with whatever she has planned, she's already waiting in the elevator holding all 6 of the golden tickets. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the chat, and hopefully you guys will check in Wednesday night. So again, thank you, Profane News, for stopping in. I have to tell all of you guys here again who didn't catch it at the beginning of the chat, the only reason I was able to find that photograph or see that it was faked and see that faked evidence and make that RBG faked photograph video for you guys today was because of Profane News. So please check them out, give them a like, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to either one of us, ring the bell too, or YouTube's never going to tell you we're on. So let's see what's in the chat, see what you guys got going. And again, Pertneer, I'll never forget. I think you were. You'll have to remind us all in the chat when you actually subscribed. But you're also not only one of my earliest subscribers, you're my first donation. That $10, it's definitely going to buy me and my wife a sandwich or something. So that's really cool. So Willie Waterbug, RBG will implicate other Obama judges too. They have to be in on it. You know, that's one of the things that actually makes it the hardest for me, and why I'm still truly interested in the Ruth Bader Ginsburg controversy, is none of them have come out and said it, not to affirm or deny that she's present. I think that is not only highly suspicious, but I think it's highly indicative and indicates that they know her condition and that it would be inappropriate for them to speak on it. I don't think that they're all completely corrupt. Some people are saying that there must be dirt on them, that they're rhinos. In some cases, that probably is the truth. But I think what actually has a lot more to do with it is she's probably on her last leg after going through that anesthesia. CNN, their medical expert himself, said it, that when someone at 85 goes into anesthesia, it's really bad on not only their physical health, but their mental health. And as a psychologist, I can tell you that your neurochemistry is highly affected when we shut down your brain with anesthesia. Your brainstem, your medulla, your central genticular nucleus, your medial temporal lobe, a lot of these key areas of your body that are regulating the different things are getting nearly shut down by the anesthesia. And the older a person gets, the closer that line between making you fall asleep and making you dead becomes. It's that gap shortens and shortens and shortens. And the more surgeries you've had, the more times your body's been exposed to anesthesia, the more dangerous it is. So I'm not sure why the other judges haven't come out and said anything. I think it's because she's in hospice care. I think she is about to die. There was public statements she made. She was going to stay as a Supreme Court justice for 6 more years, 5 more years, to make sure she got through the whole Trump administration. Well, I don't think she's going to make it through this year. If she's even alive, which I'm still not convinced she's dead or alive, I'm still digging. And until I'm convinced, until there's a definitive video that comes out that's obviously new, that has other people in it, like the president or candidates that are at a campaign or a rally or a Supreme Court function. I mean, she's been back and working for several weeks, and all of this audio is fake or whatever it is, not a single photograph. So why not? And there's a lot of evidence that even that audio is fake, but why not a single photograph? Why not a single photograph of her and Kavanaugh and all of the other Supreme Court justices walking in? I understand you can't have cameras inside the courtroom, that the oral arguments have always been audio only, and that they always have a courtroom artist. But they still march in from the chambers. They still come into the courthouse. I'm sure you can Google back pictures years ago and see plenty of pictures of them coming in or around the courthouse or after a session or before the session starts. It's a baloney excuse, and I think a lot of you guys know that too, and that's why you still stick around. So let's see what else. Willie Waterbug, not a fan of Masonry, bro. Yeah, I understand a lot of people have different perspectives on what Freemasonry is. A lot of people don't really know, and all that they do hear from it comes from YouTube. So I have another channel where it's exclusively about Masonry. I'll address some of those things here in livecast for you guys. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Maybe in the description for this video, I'll post a few links for information about Masons that is coming from a Masonic source, and hopefully you guys will realize that we're not exactly what YouTube is spinning. I make a lot of satire about the flat earth, the flat hole stuff I've made, and there's a lot of videos on the internet saying that us Masons have something to do with flat earth, and that's ridiculous. Hopefully you guys don't buy into everything you see on the internet. It's really attractive. I had wished some of those things were true when I joined Masonry, but I was pleasantly surprised that all of it wasn't, and that what they were looking for in a man to become a Mason is actually things that people would highly respect, that people in churches would highly respect. It's not a religion. We don't believe in discussing politics openly. I have a YouTube channel right now, and I'm displaying my political views, my conservative-leaning, Trump-supporting, red-blooded American, real backbone, not a social justice warrior, liberal tier junkie. But us Freemasons as a whole, you're never going to see the Scottish Rite or the Supreme Council of 33 of the Southern jurisdiction of the United States and South Carolina. You're never going to see them come out with a political piece. They're never going to try and influence American politics. Individuals within Masonry, people like me, can get all over the internet and tell people what they believe. But a lot of other people are also concerned with Masonry because they think it attaches to a religion. Now, the thing with Masonry is, to be a Mason, you cannot be an atheist. The only way to become a Freemason is to have a pronounced belief in God. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be Christian, although at certain times in history and in certain avenues of Masonry, like the Knights Templar, the Royal Arch, or the Cryptic Masons, it's necessary for you to be a Christian. In some areas and in some countries of the world, it's very necessary for you to be a Catholic. But in most areas of the world, and what under the Grand Lodge of England we consider regular Masonry, it's actually not important at all what your religion is. It's just important that you have one. So, spirituality is definitely influenced in Masonry, and they're encouraging each Mason to pick up their holy book of choice, to comb through it, to learn from its teachings, and develop their life spiritually. And you hear this all over, along with physical health, mental health, their spiritual health. Now, we're not giving you that specific spirituality. All Masonic prayers are neutral. Everything we do around funerary services or Masonic weddings. Me and my wife had the 17th Masonic wedding in America. But all of these in America are specifically religiously neutral. All of our prayers are to the grand architect of the universe, and every prayer does end with amen, but doesn't specifically point out Jesus. So it's not exclusive to Christians, but what it is exclusive to is spiritual people. Because any of the promises you make to make the world a better place, some of the most fundamental beliefs of Masonry are faith, hope, and charity, brotherly love, relief, and truth. So we believe in pure openness and honesty, fair dealings with others, not just Masons. And we believe in acting with integrity and morals. All of the degrees in Masonry, that's exactly what they deal with. And again, I'm going to throw out in the description afterwards some links to some truly Masonic information. If you guys want to know more about Masonry, maybe what is true about Masonry. And I agree with you, Willie Waterbug. I'm a Christian. My wife's a Christian. Most of her family is Christian. Some of our related family are Jewish or into other things. I would say that I'm not the mainstream Christian where I'm evangelical, but I'm definitely an in-the-home Christian. That's a Bible right there. It's an 1880s hand-bound leather-faced Bible. Just like anyone else, I have my own personal religious belief. And just like in line with the ideals of Americans, with the American Constitution and religious freedom, Masons believe that you should have a belief in a God, but not necessarily that you need to believe in the same God as the man next to you. And so to stop that contention, to allow two men who might never be friends in real life, a Jew and a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, and a Christian, to get together and have coffee, might never happen in regular life, but because of an organization like Masonry, which honestly, besides the more serious-minded, besides the little bit of spiritual infusement, besides the educational elements, Masonry is no different from the Rotary Club, from the Elks Lodge, from any fraternity or sorority in college, from any 4-H Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. In fact, most of those organizations were started by Masons. The public school systems, the university systems, public libraries, most of the American ideals that you guys believe in and love, most of these conservative, red-blooded American ideals, religious freedom, freedom of speech, the right to defend yourself, the right to your own health and happiness, that the government can't legislate things against you. when America was started, people were leaving England from the Protestant Reformation. People, the Calvinists, the Baptists, all the Presbyterians, all of the other Protestants were leaving because the churches in England kept flip-flopping. They either wanted to be Protestant, they wanted to be Roman Catholic, they wanted to be Calvinist, depending on which king was there, and people were being persecuted in their areas or being forced to believe in a certain thing. And when America came about, it's true there was Masonic influence, and if you look at the American Constitution, and this is public information like almost everything in Freemasonry, the only secrets of Freemasonry, and I'm sorry to disappoint you, I can't tell you the secrets, but they're very simple. They're just the modes that we recognize each other as a Mason by. So someone can't pretend they're a Mason. And then in the degrees, most of that is not actually secret. The only thing that's truly a secret of Masonry is that promise you make to God and to your brothers, that you'll basically live an upright life, be a good person, follow a moral and dutiful life, that you're going to be studious, that you're going to try and become a better person, that you're going to break off the rough parts of your life and try and become a stronger individual. It's really in line with any religious teaching, with any philosophical framework that wants improvement for any person who's intrinsically motivated. So enough on Masonry night, and I'll jump into some of your guys' other questions. And I totally understand where you're coming from, Willie Waterbug. But, you know, Freemasonry, just like America, was just intended to have religious freedom. So I know a lot of people, especially if you're overly dogmatic of your views, I'm very secure in my beliefs, so I don't mind what someone else believes in, as long as they don't break the Constitution and try and legislate their belief onto me. But I believe that as a Christian, we shouldn't do that to other people too. So I really appreciate your concern, Willie. I hope that you'll look at some of the resources I bring up, and hopefully that will kind of help convince you that Masonry isn't necessarily an evil thing. And I see that Willie took off because I think it is a subject, especially on YouTube, that has been really highly misrepresented. So hopefully you guys will check out my other channel where I really delve into that. This channel, obviously, I'm trying to focus on news, geopolitics, current events, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I've been focusing on the Democratic ticket. I've been focusing on that I think Hillary Clinton's going to run. I mean, also, you guys feel free to go to the Triggered Newscast, start up any forum debate questions about Masonry. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. But it's really not something that I hope you guys will think I'm trying to influence you with. Masonry is a side, separate thing I do in life. It's like anyone who's part of 4-H or anything else. So. Curtis, I try to reduce my child support, so they send cops saying I'm not paying. And that's a lot of the liberal stuff that's really trapped a lot of conservative men. I mean, I'm guessing you're a straight male. Strike number one. It's racist, but if your skin's white, you're the bad guy. You're public enemy number one. You have the lowest rights on the victim hierarchy, and it's truly, truly sad that it affects guys like that. We're not even allowed to discuss the issue of abortion. We're not allowed to be pro-choice. We're not allowed to be in that conversation. They say we are, but if you bring up a point of view, you're going to be shut down quick, especially at a liberal institution or college. So I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope that really gets going better for you, Curtis York. Jonathan Brooks. Schrodinger, SCOTUS, is Ginsburg alive, dead, or a double? Yeah, I addressed it about 5 minutes ago, Jonathan, and I really hope that some of those other justices come out. I think she's in hospice, or there's some other reason why they did that. I don't know about Q. If you guys really want to know more about Q, you should truly check out Profane News, because honestly, I only started following it a couple months ago, and I'm so far behind the loop that I'm only pointing out certain Q posts that really have to do with the articles or the information I'm providing. And to do that, I actually have to go to channels like Profane News, where they break down what that information even means. All the different brackets, the acronyms. I don't know it all because I haven't been following it. And my wife is even further off than I am because she cares absolutely zero about it. So if you guys don't know much about Q or are highly interested in Q, either way, I think you guys will like Profane News. So, Will Robinson, what's your other channel name? Here, I'll go ahead and drop a link to the channel for you guys in the chat. I've only made a couple videos on it, and they were actually made before I created this channel. This channel's 33 days old. Obviously, I'm still getting the ropes down. I'm still getting used to talking live. I'm still getting used to, I've only been creating the videos for 30 days. So hopefully you guys really think the content's getting better and better, but I'm still brand new to that as well. At the end of the video, I'll also throw up an easy way for you to get to the channel, but I'm going to drop it right now here into the live chat. And honestly, that channel is probably going to stay a little bit dead for the next 7 weeks till college is finished, because Masonry is a much more serious topic than any of the political satire and the things like that that I'm doing. So when it comes to Masonry, that's something that really takes time. As you can see behind me on the shelf, I have a lot of very old Masonic literature that's obscure. A lot of those things aren't actually secrets, but it is rare and obscure and people don't have the books. So that other channel focuses on doing literature reviews. But besides Masonry, and it's not an exclusive Masonry channel, I'm also looking to become an author. So besides doing blogs and articles, I have a high passion for anthropology, for archaeology, for ancient religions, for esoteric subjects. So on that channel, I plan on doing a lot more than just Masonry. But if you guys want to check it out, there's the channel. Irish Asgardian, you're welcome. You know, I hope I trigger people a lot, but I'm not trying to purposely deceive. And when I'm here representing myself, that's all I'm doing. So if you guys have a question, if I feel it's within the domain for me to answer, if I have the answer, if I don't, I'm going to be open, honest, and admit that I don't know. If I can find it or know something about it, I'll try to. And some of the things, like I said, I can't verify, so I don't always bring them up. I've gotten plenty of great tips from you guys, and I do follow through on all of them. I've got a lot of people contacting me at contact@triggerednewscast.com. I appreciate the emails. I appreciate the forums. I just finally got going on the community tab. So if you go to the channel, look at community, you'll see that I can now update polls and pictures and other things. I'm going to keep the live cast going constant Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Sundays for you guys. But there's obviously going to be a lot more drops. Sonia, did anybody see where a couple of months ago Fox put out a thing that showed Ginsburg, her death, and then they retracted it? Yes, actually I threw that into the timeline video. If you guys haven't got a chance to check out the timeline video, not only am I going to add a card if you rewatch this live cast afterwards, but I'll add it at the end cards. I'll add it in the description. I'm going to drop it right now in the chat. But I just made, in fact, what I'll do again is do the Twitter tweet that I did that links you to that documentary. And I'd truly appreciate any of you guys if you could retweet it so we can help make it trend on Twitter. So here's the RBG timeline. It specifically shows that death image and graphic. Several of the other documentaries I've made go explicitly into the audio. It's not as thorough of a breakdown as some of the other channels where they do audio forensics, where they pull apart the audio. But what I did do was annotate each of the times from the actual SCOTUS website. I pulled down just where Ruth Bader Ginsburg talks, put that all together. This tweet I just dropped, I made the first timeline documentary with all of the evidence, and hopefully that can get shared a little bit on Twitter. Hopefully we can get that one trending and really show people who think she's alive or think she's all the way dead, well, it's really weird that this is still going on. I appreciate you saying that, Captain Kitty. Yeah, you know, I love when people troll. I love that people have their own perspective. Unlike all of the mainstream media, I truly enjoy debating. I like what is real argument, academic argument, philosophical debate, using logic, syllogisms, premises. really getting into that debate. I think it's important, and none of the mainstream media does it. When I was a child, they used to bring on intellectuals, Christopher Hitchens or other public figures, and they would bring them on to be contrarian to whatever idea that the network was playing out. Now Fox News has down in Brazil. They're all liberal. So, you guys have seen what's happened with the mainstream media. Fox News will do a live cast and they'll get 50 people on. They'll post a video about Trump and they'll get 1,000 views in a whole day. The mainstream, you go to a CNN video and it will literally have 1,000 views and 800 of them are dislikes. That's huge interaction for people just to give it a thumbs down. So I don't plan on dismissing anyone else's idea. In fact, on top of doing the research, the podcast, the content I'm doing, the satire, because I think it's funny. I like triggering people with controversial ideas and different ideas. I believe in true progressivism. I think most conservatives actually do, and that the progressive party's BS. I think a lot of you guys know that too. So I appreciate that you guys realize I'm not trying to harp on you or force you to believe what I'm. Obviously, some of my content has a slight conservative lean because I'm conservative, but I'm not trying to hide that. I'm not trying to lie about it. And when I provide the evidence, I'm actually not trying to give it one push or the other. I think if you watch the Timeline doc, if you watch some of the other documentaries I've made, I'm mostly pretty neutral. And I'm saying, hey, like with the audio that came out in February and March, sure, there's audio. You can argue the veracity and the truthfulness, or, if it's real, if it's unadulterated, unedited audio. I don't think that it actually is. If you listen to the full audio, even without the forensic audio breakdown, there's plenty of stutters. If you look at the annotations of the time where she spoke on those different days, the first 2 days, it's all over the place. And then the rest of the video, she's chunked into one spot at 6 minutes or 40 minutes or 48 minutes, perfectly timed. And you can just look through the description on those videos, even if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, because I didn't really care to either. I need to make a much more concise one that just shows some of the really odd sounding audio errors in it, and maybe make it down to like a 30-second clip that compares the old audio to that new, and especially the new audio that sounds sketchy. But, hopefully when you guys see the evidence, I'm trying to push it out for the believers of Ruth Bader Ginsburg to see it too. I want the polarized debate to happen in the comments. I'm not trying to force either side, and I'm not convinced either way. That's why I'm getting the evidence. So thank you, Captain Kitty, for noticing that, and I'll keep doing that. Will Robinson. Hey, thanks for coming in, Will Robinson. Welcome to the team. 33 days. I've got 3,800 of you, but I truly appreciate the ones like you who come on by and interact, ask questions, and give me a reason to be on here. Sarah Della Rosa, RBG cloned. I haven't followed any of the clone stuff. I've seen a lot of weird things about it. I know that during the 2016 Hillary Clinton election, there was obviously some weird stuff going on there where I'm convinced it was not her. I can't tell all of you to believe that. I don't have any proof or evidence of that, but I was not convinced seeing all the footage, even on the mainstream media, without going into YouTubes or conspiracies. It was pretty apparent that that was not always Hillary Clinton they were showing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'll say when you look at the TMZ video comparison, to me, it sort of does look like a different woman. Her neck is much more vertical. She's walking with much more ease. She's also should be recuperating from her broken ribs, from her cancer, from pneumonia, from all the other stuff she was going through. Remember, the timeline shows it, and it's really hard when you're just following the news. But when you visualize the timeline, you can see that for over 2 months, there was media silence on her. She breaks her ribs, gets the cancer discovered, has a lobectomy all within a couple days, and isn't heard from again until she's magically released on Christmas with no photographs. No one thought it would be great to see her being released from the hospital right as her movie's coming out. February, she comes back to work. February 4th, she's spotted by everyone. All kinds of news was there, but no one could get the most tremendous photograph ever of her coming up the steps. So, the TMZ one, That one's maybe the only one where I'm like, yeah, maybe she's a clone, because everything else has just been old photos that are either photoshopped or explicitly old photos that they even annotate in the article is old, but they know that the liberals are so dumb who read it, and most of them don't read it. They just look at the thumbnail that's shared. Most people don't click on that stuff, and they're making a face judgment based off of whatever it says it came from and whatever the picture icon says. Sadly, most people have a minute to 1 year memory and a minute long attention span. For most people, it's more like 15 or 30 seconds. Most people's working memory is about 8 to 9 seconds, and that's the average. So you have to assume half of people are less than that. So, I think that it's possible. I'm not sure how much I buy into that there's clones. Maybe I'll dig into it. Maybe I'll present that. But I'm also, while I touch conspiracies, I'm not trying to go knee deep in conspiracy. I am trying to present real evidence. I do plan on doing real scholarly articles at a much higher standard than any journalist you see modern time. I can't say that, like all those journalists, I'm going to have the same resources, that I can go to some of the same places, that I'm going to have the same access they do. But what I will do is quadruple verify my sources. I'm not going to parrot a fake dossier. I'm not going to encourage a false investigation based off of zero evidence, when if you do any real digging, it's apparent that the dossier was purchased by a political campaign enemy who was also under another FBI investigation at the time. So, that's just my personal belief on that. But as far as the clones go and some of the deeper conspiracies, unless I see anything truly substantial, I don't know if I'll touch it. I touched Ruth Bader Ginsburg because it's in the news. Even the news, if the news and the mainstream media, and that's the funniest thing about all the detractors, the naysayers, the people who believe she's just purely alive, is that if she's alive, then you believe this evidence. But if you haven't watched that evidence, then you believe something you were told. And then if you have seen the evidence and you still discredit it, well, it's not me that's the fake news. I'm only parroting CNN, The Hill, The Washington Post, New York Times. I give you all the articles and sources in the description. When I do actual articles, I will source and cite everything. It'll almost be annoying to read when I do real articles. The blogs will be a lot easier because I won't annotate them as much, and maybe I'll leave out a more informal form of citation and then put the references all at the bottom. But in the articles I write, anything that I start doing that way is going to be very substantial, very thorough. That's just my habit as a researcher. Jonathan Brooks. High creep factor about this Ginsburg thing, because if she is alive and working hard, then why is she doddering woman who was bowed over and sleepy months ago? Yeah, I mean, that's another huge thing. In the audio comparison, I should have included that into the timeline, but I thought that it would just really detract from what the timeline was trying to do. So there is an entire audio documentary I made too, and that one I'll throw down in the description or add it in the pinned comment afterwards. But that one shows the entirety of the audio, compares it to the old, and you can hear that in her last November session. Man, does she sound under the weather. Man, does she sound on drugs and incoherent. When she's asked questions, you can hear the labored breathing. And she hasn't had a third of her lung cut off yet. She hasn't even broken her ribs. Not only did she have the most miraculously health coverage, but I made another comparison to the Whoopi Goldberg incident. Some of you who followed me for a long time have seen it because it was one of my first videos. But Whoopi Goldberg gets sick, gets pneumonia, goes septic in her lungs, stops showing up on The View. She might be back. I haven't really checked, but as far as my knowledge, she's still out and was recovering. People were making up conspiracies about Whoopi Goldberg. The View, her directors, her doctors, and her came out and made a video, talked about it, assured everyone, no, she's not dead, no, she's not arrested, and she explained her situation. We haven't had Ruth Bader Ginsburg give as much as a press release. We've had the press give release on her behalf, and all of that evidence has been extremely flimsy. I don't think any of it would hold up in court. I think the Obama birth certificate was more solid than most of these video evidences. At least in that case, you couldn't go back and see whatever the original document who the names were directly from that file. You had to do a lot of digging and research. Sheriff Arpaio, many of the other people who dug into that whole controversy found it was much harder to actually tie the evidence in. All of this Ruth Bader Ginsburg stuff, within 5 minutes, with one Google image comparison or video comparison, you can see that the video that they post is from November or from 2017 or 2016. This audio, I don't know, but it sounds a lot more clear than what was in November. And when you look at other people who've gone through and have done, Neon Revolt did that audio comparison. It was really crazy, but it does sound like it's pieced in. And even with the audio that I made, you can clearly tell that some of the audio, as a new contributor to YouTube, some of my editing hasn't been that great. And you can hear places where I try and patch in or copy something from somewhere else, and you'll hear stutters or repeats, or a part of a word will be cut off, and that happens a lot in this Ginsburg audio too. And these are highly articulate attorneys. When I listened to the full things, hours and hours, it was about 27 hours of different audio I listened to compile these for you. And all of those, the attorneys were highly articulate, didn't stutter once. You get right around Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and these people fall apart. So I don't know. I think I'm going to read a few more comments. I think I've held most of you guys hostage for 45 minutes now. I'm going to go ahead and bring you back Wednesday. Again, I'm going to focus on the We the People Summit, the Democratic Party. If anything else new comes out in Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'll do it then. If you guys haven't checked out that timeline video, I know a few people just dropped in. I'll drop it one last time. And again, pert near all of you guys, thank you. I truly appreciate the interaction. And we'll see you guys again Wednesday at 8 p.m. on the next Triggered live broadcast.